I'm here in
Well,
I'm here in the beauty of the Pacific Northwest. But how was your weekend?
it was quiet and a lot of football. And
Yes.
we had wonderful Thanksgiving over at Kailani's house. Kailani and Steve did the cooking and did a great job. Then the next day was Kennedy Quinn, our granddaughter's 10th birthday. So we celebrated Thanksgiving and the birthdays together.
Is she aware that every year from henceforth she's going to get a turkey on her birthday?
Well, depending on where those Thursdays land for Thanksgiving, she's right on top of the holiday or a couple of days after. She's like her
No.
mother in that respect because Kailani was born on December 16th. So she was always being birthday and Christmas together.
Ah.
And so Kennedy is birthday and Thanksgiving together.
Yes. I get Labor Day because I was born not on Labor Day, but day before Labor Day. And no, a day after Labor Day. So I always get the Labor Day thing. And Erin, of course, gets the 4th of July because she's born smack dab on the 4th of July. So
line them up.
So she's still under the impression at 33 years old the fireworks are for her.
Well, she's right.
And she is. And I'm not going to be the one to tell her any different. Why should I ruin the party? Huh. I had something here a minute ago, and it has disappeared.
We must be live.
Yes, we are live, as a matter of fact. How did you know? Oh, yes, the little something. Matter of fact, we've been live for 2 minutes and 38 seconds or something, and you can always tell because the little thing comes up and says live, and then starts to tell you how long we've been going. So, always one of my favorite parts of the show.
Tom Stoppard, the famous playwright and screenwriter, died at the age of 88 this weekend and got a lot of memories posted about him because he wrote Shakespeare in Love with one other writer, and he wrote Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead and a number of other famous plays and screenplays. And I got to interview him once when I was doing the red carpet at the Golden Globes here in Hollywood.
Yeah.
And I asked him about Shakespeare in Love. There was a line in there that I thought was hilarious. Shakespeare was writing this play that wasn't going that well, and he just couldn't get it done, couldn't get it right. And it was called Ethel, the Pirate's Daughter.
I like the title.
He changed it to Romeo and Juliet, I think, or something along those lines. But I said, who came up with the line, Ethel, the Pirate's Daughter? And he said, guilty as charged.
Ethel, I love the name.
So that was my that was my meeting with the now late Thomas Stoppard, and he got accolades from everybody far and wide, including Mick Jagger and people that he had worked with in the past, people that had followed his career. Excuse me, I'm yawning. But my memory of him is his hands in his pockets of his tuxedo, enjoying the fact that someone had paid attention to Ethel, the Pirate's Daughter, and asked about her.
I've always noticed when you interview writers, and I'm sure you've interviewed many more than I have. When you interview a writer and you can pull something out of one of their works that, while not obscure, is not the most, is not the movie poster quote.
Right.
that everybody knows. When you can point to a moment or something and ask them a question about that, they immediately form it's like a writer's bond. I don't even know if it's a writer's bond as much as it is just an appreciation that, hey, somebody paid freaking attention to what I wrote here.
Somebody
You know,
read what I wrote. Yeah.
7,900 words, and a couple of them actually hit.
Mhm.
Especially if you're not looking at notes.
Right.
If you're just kind of taking it off the top of your head. Oh yeah, I remember that. I remember that they were going to originally call that play Ethel of Mertz, weren't they?
Might have. She
Yes,
was from Mertz.
she was from Mertz. Well, good. I'm glad you had a good weekend. I myself here at the beautiful Northwest, we had some nice weather, cold and rainy a couple of days, but nonetheless okay. It's pretty bad when you start saying that the rainy weather is nice, but it was. It wasn't too cold, and we did the casino for Thanksgiving dinner,
And how
and
was
I
the
got to tell
dressing?
you, it was a blast. The Snoqualmie Casino is one of the last casinos around here that does a buffet,
A Jew.
and their buffet is stunning. I mean, it just has everything. Yeah, turkey, ham, um, whatever prime rib. You could have a little bit of whatever you wanted, or you could have a lot of whatever you wanted, as much as you could pack in. Just don't bring any plastic bags. And
What about the dressing? You were
they had a cornbread sausage dressing that was I thought was pretty damn good. I was considering bringing some dressing because I make this like sausage and oyster and chestnut dressing that's kind of derivative of what my grandmother used to make um, on Thanksgiving, or as close to it as I've been able to kind of get from memory. And I actually made some, and I was going to take it a little bit with me, just to kind of have it and eat it. But I just, I'm gonna probably gonna have to wind up standing online, which we did. We stood online for an hour and a half, or maybe almost 2 hours for the buffet. But it was a fun line. It was a good bunch of people. I made a new friend on the line. We were just sitting there talking, and we just started. Sometimes you talk to people and you're clicking with them. And this guy Jordan, I just started clicking with him. We started talking, and it turns out that his kid plays for UCLA. His kid or his nephew, I forget now. I think it's his nephew actually plays for
football,
UCLA,
basketball, what?
a football. And so on Saturday, I turned on the television set, and there he was scampering up and down the field.
There he was.
And
Good game too.
yeah, the name Jordan on his back, and I watched some of that game. Watched some of the Washington game, and I watched some of the Cougar game. Now I don't know what happened at the end of the Cougar game because I like to leave the Cougar games when I'm ahead.
Before they Cougar.
Before I've learned in 30 years of watching Cougar games that the way to watch these games is when they get up by 20 or 25 or something like that, leave, turn it off, and in your mind they'll be 12-0 the whole year.
Just turn it off. You'll thank me in the long run.
But as far as I know, the Cougars won it. They were playing Oregon State, and they won it, and they are bowl eligible. So I don't know which bowl that they will be offered or that they will take, but I'm always a fan of taking whatever bowl you get. Pitt used to be notorious about not taking a bowl game or not taking a bid to the NIT because they felt it was beneath them. And I always thought that was that was
It's a silly
not,
thing to
not
do.
what the kids went there for. The kids went there to get a bowl game, to go to a bowl game. This was, of course, before all of this insanity that's now in college sports, which makes it, to me, almost unwatchable.
What about Lane Kiffin? Are you ready to come down on what side of the attacks that he's facing today for going to LSU from Ole Miss?
I don't know why anybody should bother worrying about where any coach is going, because it's all plug and play. It's all interchangeable. I'm sorry. If you're getting upset about where a coach is going and not getting upset about the condition that this country is in, then you know what? It's your bad. And maybe that disqualifies me for sports radio. I don't know. But
well, the condition of the country and where football coaches go are two very different subjects that do not mesh. They do not. One does not exist as the result of the other.
Well, they don't exist, but they're indicative of, I think, society of today. There's no loyalty left. There's no, no. It's completely about how much can I squeeze out of a college, a person, a this, a that.
A job that could be 1 year, 5 years. You sign on to make X amount of millions of dollars to coach their team for X amount of time, but there's nothing in that contract that's enforceable. You can leave when you want, and they can fire you when they want. So it's both sides doing smoke screens.
Yeah, it's kind of how our government works.
And LSU fired Kelly, and he had $56 million left on his contract. They had an opening and made an offer to Kiffin, who left Ole Miss, can't go to the bowl game with them, can't coach them to the end of the season. Well, that's the school's decision. They're the ones paying the bills. They're the ones paying the freight. If he wants to go to another team, how they handle that severance package and how they handle the exit that he has to make is up to them.
And again, there's no it's just that the loyalty in the places excuse me, where you're supposed to learn about loyalty.
First of all, loyalty is a concept that doesn't apply to business.
Well, see, I disagree with that. I think there are,
because business is dollars and cents, and loyalty is something that you're thinking about, some image in your mind.
Well, but I'm loyal to, instead of going to buy a birthday cake at Safeway or at some major supermarket or something like that, I'm still loyal to the baker that's been there on the corner for 30 years. And so I go buy my birthday cake there. I pay more for my birthday cake. I'm just using birthday cake as an example. I pay more for my rolls, my Kaiser rolls, if I want, or whatever I'm buying. But I'm loyal to that baker because he's a small business, and I feel a sense of loyalty to that person that I've been going to for a certain amount of years.
Yeah, but he's the one that would, in this case, have to exhibit loyalty. If you're asking the head coach be loyal to his school rather than the other way around, or with similar permutation, we got apples and oranges almost immediately. You're being loyal to the baker. Who's he loyal to? Is he loyal to you?
I suppose so. I mean, I don't know how he would be loyal to me except to continually put out a product and not raise his prices ridiculously. But that's how, to me, that's how it all works, is that you have businesses or people that set up in a community, and part of the deal is for them setting up is that you participate in that business. You help them survive by being loyal to them by buying their product, right?
So that's the ticket buyer in football. That's the fan that supports the team. But the team exists separate from the fan, and the coach exists separate from both of them.
Well, in a sense, yeah. I mean, I don't think there's absolutes on it, though. I think that there's different, there's different circumstances. I would probably be less upset about Lane Kiffin leaving wherever Lane Kiffin was leaving. Ole Miss, than I was when Mike Price left Wazoo, because Mike Price had a history in Wazoo. He had, in essence, a dream job. I guess, though, it turned out that it wasn't his dream job. But he had and he went out and he recruited kids and he talked to kids and said, come to this school because I'm going to be here and I'm going to, shepherd your career through school and get you ready for the pros. Or if I sense that you have the ability to go to the pros, I'm going to get you ready for that. I'm going to use my ability and my power to get you looked at, to get you seen by pro scouts. And you come to this school that's out in the middle of at the corner of nowhere and anywhere. And come and hang out with me, and I'll make a quarterback out of you. I'll make a lineman out of you. I'll make whatever position I think will benefit you and benefit me because I want to win games. But once the allure of, he had obviously gotten away from it a few times, but once the allure of Alabama came, and a job that so many people told him, don't take it because there's one simple reason: you're not one of them. But
that was the phrase that Ole Miss used when they announced their new coach today, that he was one of them.
Right. Well, that's and there was no one of them anywhere in the any of the Mike Price thing. And I know I go back to Mike Price, but in many ways, he is the coach that I have been more disappointed in, because we had a personal relationship with the guy, and you just knew that when they started talking about the job, that he was gonna, oh no, he's gonna take this job. And he's going to jump on this job. And it was a sad thing for a lot of the young men that went to that school, because they believed in, not just in Wazoo, but they believed in him. Same thing with Don James. They went to that school because they believed in Don James. Right? And probably, now we can look back on it and say they were probably getting a hefty paycheck too. But, and listen, I'm kind of, I know it's not reality. I know reality is different than what I like to believe in Vinnie world, what goes on. But sometimes you like to think that there still is that loyalty to a person, that loyalty to an institution, that loyalty to one's friends, and that we haven't lost it. And it's not a one-way thing. If you're going to be, how many times in the last 12 years have we seen, or 10 years, have we seen people be loyal to the president of the United States, and he kicked them to the curb the first chance he got? In the case
happy to do it, no charge whatsoever.
So I try to hold on to loyalty anywhere I can these days, Michael, because I think it's something that future generations aren't going to know about.
Well, I don't think it figures into any of the decisions that were made between school, coach, and two schools and a coach.
Yeah, you know what? Probably not. Probably not. But I want to be stupid enough to believe that it should. You're right. It probably doesn't figure in. But I want to still believe that there is some kind of loyalty to a school or a concept or something. You're right. I don't know that there's loyalty in anything these days. We may be the last two loyal guys to each other that are left in the whole fucking world.
Possibly.
You know, but there's no loyalty to Donald Trump to Rudy Giuliani. Certainly no loyalty from what's I'm trying to think of John Bolton to Donald Trump. There's just this, and maybe there was never any loyalty at that level of people. You know that the higher up you get, the less loyalty you find when it should be more. But the people that are loyal find time and time again that they get burnt, right? But you're right at the college level. Um, you're right. Now it is, and it's why I don't particularly like it much anymore because I had a concept that people were loyal to their schools and people were loyal to institutions, and it turns out really that they weren't. You know that the whole homecoming thing, it's all just a show. You know, the coach getting out there and telling you on the Friday night before the last game when he just got off the plane to Alabama, coming back and saying "Go Cougs" was bullshit. You know, why did he even show up? Why didn't he just let his assistant coach go and do it? You know, it's just I don't know. It's institutional lying, and I just think at the educational system, it's not supposed to be like that. But maybe I'm stupid. I don't know. Maybe I just don't get what's going on, and that's maybe why I don't have the feeling for sports that I once did. You know, the passion that I once did. I mean, I'm loyal to teams that I will always be. I'll always be loyal to the Mets.
The Jets won. How about that?
I'm loyal to them, but they make it difficult. They really make it difficult. Even when they win, they make it difficult. And yes, they won. And it was such that when I picked up my phone and looked at the scoreboard yesterday, I couldn't believe it.
And they're booing Rogers in Pittsburgh.
Well, yeah, he sucks.
And not without reason and not exclusively. They're booing the team.
They're booing the team. They're booing the coach. They always boo the coach. The coach could be 15 and 3 or 15 and 2, and they would boo Mike Tomlin. It's just, you know, it's a number of factors. It's not just one factor. There's a number of factors there.
No, they want to win it all, and it's not going to happen.
Yeah. You know, I think he's one of the best coaches in the league. But the standard in Pittsburgh is that you have to win the Super Bowl every year. That you should never have a year where you don't win the Super Bowl. And that's how they start out. And that's good. Because the goal should always be to win, right? To win the Super Bowl. I mean, you start a baseball season with the goal of winning the World Series, even if you can't win the World, even if you know that you got no shot.
If that's your goal, and that controls your behavior. And
it's the point of the game, right?
Just
the point
win,
of the
baby.
game is to play like you can win, act as if you can. So anyway, yes, the Jets did win. They beat Atlanta, which I don't think was that easy. Atlanta's not a good team, but they're not a bad team. Now, the Seahawks go down to see Atlanta next week.
No guarantees.
And that'll, you know, Well, I don't think the Seahawks should. The problem is, and I don't think the players get like this, but certainly the fans get like, after a game that you win 26-0, um, all of a sudden the fans get kind of assy and they start to think, well, we should win every game.
We should
you
shut
know,
them out.
shut them out. We should pitch a shutout, a perfect. And people forget that until the waning minutes of the first half, the Seahawks hadn't done much of anything in that game. And it had to be interesting because wasn't Sam Darnold, didn't he rescue them from the depths of despair the year before?
Yes.
And
he had a good season with him.
Right, and they decided that they didn't need him.
Didn't need him.
That they could, and I know they had another quarterback that was injured. I can't remember his name, but they decided that, hey, you know what? We can win without Sam Darnold. We can. So let him go. Let him go wherever the hell he wants to go.
We won't miss him.
We won't miss him. Looked to me like that was a team yesterday that missed having a good quarterback, even having a good backup quarterback. Now, the guy that was in there maybe could be a good quarterback someday.
Not yesterday, though.
It wasn't yesterday.
Mm-mm.
It wasn't yesterday. He looked like he was totally outmatched. The whole team looked like they were outmatched. After
like a frontage road in Spolpakia.
Yeah. They played okay for the first 20 minutes of the first half. And then it just fell off the table after that. And the rest didn't help them in the locker room. Didn't help them at all. Came out and whatever win they had in their sales, they lost. I was half expecting it at the end of the third quarter for Mike Tice to come out of the stands and take over the head coaching reins of the Minnesota Vikings to try to steer them on victory. But he wouldn't have done that until he sold a couple of tickets on the way down. So,
for walking around money.
Well, you get these tickets, you should sell them to people. They're worth something. You can take the New York out of the boy. You can take the boy out of New York, but you can't take.
Don't you dare take the boy out of New York.
Yeah, you can't take it. Can't go the other way. You can't take the New York. The boy. You take the boy out of New York, but you can't take the hustle, the swindle, out of the boy. It still sits there and remains there. So, but it was a good slate. Steelers. I actually watched the Steeler game when they were ahead of the Buffalo Bills for a fleeting moment, and then I went past it and didn't watch it, and I saw the end result, and it didn't seem to be pretty.
Fans were upset.
Oh yeah, fans get upset in Pittsburgh. It's not, every Monday that the Steelers lose in Pittsburgh feels like the day that Kennedy got killed.
Wild day on the sports radio stations.
Yeah, it's just, I mean, we should, I really wouldn't want to do it because I really wouldn't want to give the fan announcer credit, but, and the only guy I probably would have on from out there is either Joe Starkey or there's a guy that just passed away a year or two ago, Stan Savran, that was a really good sports talk guy. And we had Sam on when the Seahawks went to the Super Bowl with Pittsburgh. And that's how I got to get familiar with Sam. And just and there's a few other guys, but it's a sea of screamers, a sea of just voices in the wilderness. that are screaming pretty much the same thing. Fire the coach, fire this guy, get rid of this guy, get rid of that guy. It's always get rid of. Um, but nobody seems to have the right answer for what you do once you get rid of whoever you got rid of.
Well, the hue and cry from the fans when they want a new coach always just includes the firing of the one they've got. They haven't gotten to the point where they realize they have to hire someone else, and where they're going to
Right.
get him, and who's that going to be, and what are they expected to accomplish? What are they able to accomplish? What will they accomplish? And
Yeah.
how do you expect this team to change dramatically when you change the guy who doesn't play, but you don't change your players?
Well, it made me laugh last season. How many people were screaming for Dan Wilson to be fired when the Mariners, remember, they had that kind of period in the middle of the season where, it was the July to August kind of blues that most teams get. And the Mariners couldn't seem to pull away from the Astros. They were battling him, or they couldn't catch him, or they would battle him. And anyway, so everybody was getting antsy on Dan Wilson. And I was like, Jesus, you got to give the guy he's essentially a first-year manager. He's got him battling for first place. He even took Lou Piniella a couple of years when he got here to get them to battle for first place. But fans pay, when you're paying $100, $125, $150 for a seat to go see a ball game, I believe that your patience starts to wear a little thin.
Well, that's the nature of a fan. They don't analyze things. That's why if Lane Kiffin had stayed at Ole Miss, they would have loved him today. But he's leaving for LSU, so they hate him.
Right.
Same guy, same team, same fan base. And LSU, the same is reversed. If he had stayed at Ole Miss, they would have hated Lane Kiffin and hated Ole Miss too. Never in my lifetime will I say a kind word to anything about Ole Miss. But he goes to LSU, and he hasn't won a game, but they love him. Now they love him. Now wonderful things will be in our future. Now I am a fan of a winning team because of a new coach. And the hatred and negativity I felt for the old coach that they just fired, and by the way, they owe him millions of dollars that Louisiana has to come up with.
How does Louisiana, with the worst educational system in the country, I mean, and by a lot, it's not like they're here and Alabama is like, 2 percentage points ahead of them or something like that. They're the worst educational system on so many levels. The only thing they have that's worth talking about is football, right? I mean, what else do they have in Mississippi that you can point to and say, that's where I want to send my kid for an education? And they're into the coach for 56, did you say, million?
That's what they owe him.
Yeah.
LSU owes their coach.
What do you think they could do? And I know it's, I know it's a different system and it's not going, but what do you think they could do with 56 million in their primary and secondary school systems?
They're not interested in that.
Yeah. What do you think how much could they raise the level of education in that state with $56 million to buy kids books, to train teachers better, to pay teachers more so they would be interested in teaching in a school in that state? But you're exactly right. They're not interested in that. And that's where we are a country that just makes you stop sometimes and scratch your head. But practice will open on what do they usually open practice on August 1st?
Mhm.
Well, man, I think it's a little earlier than that. Now
The
all those
spring,
kids,
they have the controlled spring practice.
yeah, all those kids become free agents as well, right? I think when
Sure.
a coach leaves the school, everybody is kind of free. It's not like it used to be, where kids had to stay and the coach could go. The one good thing that they did out of all of this is that if the coach goes, everybody can pick another school.
And there's the opportunity for kids at Ole Miss to enter the portal and go to LSU, follow their coach if they so choose.
Right. Which is not the way it used to be.
No.
So if Coach A recruited you and he's now going to another school, we can follow him to that school. At least he can fulfill some of his promise that he gave your parents in the living room
If
of
you are
take care of your kids.
if you're a talent that fits into the scheme that he's going to institute or introduce to this new school.
Yeah. Well, that's so the 49ers picked up a win yesterday, did they not?
They did. They won well over Cleveland, in Cleveland. And it
Right.
was cold and windy. And the wind off the lake was really blowing. It was,
And
it was a snow flurry day.
a lake effect day.
Oh, yeah.
A lake effect day. And I believe now Sanders played on Thursday night, right?
No, he played yesterday.
He played yesterday.
He did. And he'll start next week as well.
So, and have they warmed up to him? I mean, I know he won the week before.
Well, I think that the team as a whole, Cleveland Browns as a whole, are unlikely to beat the 49ers. Maybe 49ers will win 2 out of 3, no matter what.
Yeah.
Just because of the talent. But the Browns have gotten better, and Shadur Sanders has shown poise and talent enough to probably keep the job. But if he loses the rest of the season, the easiest thing to do is change quarterbacks.
Now, you'll have to forgive my ignorance here, but who was the head coach in Cleveland? Do you remember?
No.
Because I wonder how long it'll be before they start to mention
Every
Deion
year.
Sanders as a candidate
Oh,
for
that's interesting.
the Cleveland head coaching job, right?
Possible.
Especially if they don't have a good season the rest of the way.
Well, his season at Colorado has not been much to shout about this year.
Right. I think he won one game, right?
Maybe 2.
Yeah. I mean, it's unfortunate because he was the hot commodity the year before. Or 2
Well,
years.
they had 2 new quarterbacks this year. They lost Shadur Sanders, so people were vying for the job, and they never ever settled on the guy they needed. He just didn't appear to be on the team.
That's tough. That's tough
And
when you.
the guys that they did have were inaccurate with their passing, ineffective running game. A lot of the basics in the quarterback position were not being seen to, and the calling of the offense I thought was weak this year.
Yeah. Yeah, it'll be interesting to see, as it always is interesting to see. I always enjoy that coaches go around at that coaches carousel. It kind of starts to spin with college, of course, this couple of weeks between Thanksgiving and Christmas. And I mean, it gets to be a pretty active week, a pretty active couple of weeks in sports because you have the coaches moving all over the place in college, and you have free agents in baseball that will be signing or getting traded, or it just becomes like that season in baseball where everything kind of the deals that have been talked about kind of get worked out, and everybody gets that week before Christmas always seems to be big contract week.
And at the same time that's happening, Japanese players are qualifying
Right.
to come and find a team here.
So, yeah, and there's a couple of Japanese players that have been posted, and I guess teams have expressed quite an interest in a couple of them.
Sure they have.
And it's funny because I remember when Ichiro came over, and he was, before him there hadn't really been a Japanese position player. Pitchers were obviously come over, but there hadn't been there just wasn't that many, if any. He was the first.
I don't know if they wanted to come. It wasn't like a flow of players that had been instituted and then cut off, or started and then stopped. You hadn't heard about Japanese stars coming to the U.S.
right
for several years, and I don't know what the deal was. Major League Baseball might have been part of it, and maybe the players thought that they had too much of a challenge to come up against all the social differences, personal life differences that you were going to have to face.
Yeah.
That you weren't going to be speaking your native language. Maybe you didn't speak English at all. And what it's like to be one guy on the team that's not like the other guys, and how that works negatively through the period of the season.
Well, and they kind of took care of that at least a little bit with the first pitchers that really started to come over, because they allowed them to have interpreters. If you remember, before Sasaki came over, and he was one of the first guys to come over, and Hideo Nomo, for the Dodgers, you didn't have an interpreter. You couldn't come out to the mound. So that seemed to be a problem. And then I guess they loosened. I don't know for sure how they decided how to use the interpreter, but I remember one day seeing another person out on the mountain and going, "Wait a second, this guy, who's this guy?" But
the Smokey Burgess rule. You can have an interpreter, but he must be Smokey Burgess.
Yeah, better yet, Yogi. I mean, there you go. This guy's speaking Japanese to Yogi. Yogi is speaking what we don't know what.
You don't know. It's not English.
Yeah, nobody knows what the hell is going on.
It's a derivative of English, but not pure English.
We need an interpreter for the pitcher. We need an interpreter for the manager. We need an interpreter for the interpreter. It get mighty crowded out there on the mound. No wonder you need a pitch clock.
And you have to ask in several languages, can anybody here play this game?
And the lucky thing is the answer in many languages is no.
But in Japan, it's hype.
Yeah, say. So I don't know. But it's always the interesting. It's what I used to call the transaction column part of the year, because there was a time when these things were just in the transaction column. Now they're made a bigger deal out of because of the money involved. But
it used to be you'd start the season and you say, where the hell did we get this pitcher? Where'd this guy come from?
When
he came to Detroit in a 3-player trade. Oh, I don't remember hearing or reading anything about that. Now every inch of the offseason is examined by ESPN and Major League Baseball, and they make every trade an important one. and they have a list of guys who should be traded or could be traded or might sign but couldn't sign but will sign. But how? How will we get these guys? Who's going to pay for it? What about the cap?
Yeah, good God. I mean, it seemed when the Mets traded Brandon Nimmo, who was a fan favorite in New York, for Simeon from Texas, that it was as if they traded Tom Seaver all over again. Now I like Brandon Nimmo. I thought he was a good, kind of good player for him. And it was the only team he ever played for. So they drafted him and brought him up and everything. But you weren't trading Babe Ruth there. You were trading a good contact hitter for a guy that is a few years older, but is a pretty damn good defensive second baseman. And I don't know. I always thought that you try to make yourself as strong as you can up the middle. And your corner positions will kind of fix that up. And then there was a story that broke, and I don't believe anything these days. I mean, I think I'm at a point where if I don't hear it out of the player's mouth, I don't believe it. That Nimmo demanded to be traded because he didn't like who they elected mayor of the city of New York.
That's a new one on me.
Yeah, that was the story floating around on Friday, that he had come out and said that he didn't like the idea of having a socialist or democratic socialist as the mayor of the city he played in. So it's like, what did you take your civics lesson from, Aaron Rodgers? I mean, now you don't like the mayor of the city you play in, so you're going to ask for a trade? It sounded preposterous to me.
And he ended up in where? Houston?
Texas. The Texas Rangers, or as I like to call them, Washington Senators V2.
Well, if he can align himself comfortably with the politics and the politicians of Texas.
If that's actually what happened. And again, I don't, I saw it first as a post on the internet. Within 24 hours, the New York Post was running with it as a story. And I have learned many times not to trust what the New York Post is printing.
Because Alexander Hamilton is not going over the copy every day. He hasn't got the time.
He isn't. Neither is anybody named Hamilton, has really come to think of it. I don't know that there's anybody going over the copy at the New York Post anymore.
That's not going to work in the long run, by the way.
Seems like it's turned into a rag, which is what it was when I was growing up. I remember distinctly my grandmother calling it a commie rag all the time. And if they were out of, I remember one time they had, for some reason, run out of the Daily News up the corner. When I went up the corner to get the paper, which is something you did. You went up the corner to get the paper. And I went up the corner to get the paper, and there was no paper to be had. I guess somebody had come by and bought, 20 copies of the Daily News. There used to be these people who used to go to the candy store and they'd buy, 20 copies of the news and then walk to the bars and sell it, walk into the bar and sell it. And, for a nickel paper or a 10-cent paper, people would give them a quarter. And you could actually, make some money doing that. Not going to get rich, but if you wanted to hustle, the hustle was there. And so I brought my grandmother, this was Grandma Kelly, brought her back a New York Post. And you'd have thought I brought her back a spool of used toilet paper.
She wasn't having it.
Yeah, it was, just take it back down and get your nickel back. Or I think it was a dime at the time. Uh, I don't even want this rag in my house. It was, they were, it was funny because it used to scream it was a communist rag, but I remember them being vehemently anti-union.
Well, the Post has been reliably conservative and tight reins on the content for 30 years.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Since they went tabloid, the Post when I was growing up, it wasn't a tabloid. I mean, it came in tabloid form, but it was, the Daily News was really the
The
paper
model
that
for
had the
tabloid
shocking headline.
hoopla and sports on the back page.
Right, and sports on the back page. I mean, you knew that you could just, you could turn that Daily News over and read the scores. It had the scoreboard right on the back page. You could read the scores of the game before the guy came and chased you off of the stand. With the Daily News. It was an easy paper to get and flip and look at the scores. So that's why I always liked the Daily News. Or you could hold it up and read it when you're on the train. It was easy to hold. Or, that form of newspaper always was the working man's newspaper.
Yeah.
You could read it with one hand. You could turn the pages with one. You could flip it. You could hold it and flip it with your thumb, and then just whip. You could flip it and whip it. You flip it with your thumb and whip the page around and hold
Whereas
on
the,
to it.
the New York Times required several folds. You had to
Yeah,
fold the left section in half and the right section in half, and then refold them, unfold them, refold them, stitch page. It's much harder to read that on the subway.
yeah. Lot of it was very. If you had a seat, it was easier to read. But if you were standing up,
You're in trouble.
if and it was always funny because the richer people live nearer the first stop, so they get the seats. So if you get on at 74th Street on a train, unless you have a kind gentleman who happens to give you his seat, you're standing all the way into Manhattan. And it never bothered me to stand all the way into Manhattan. If I had to stand, I mean, I didn't like it, but I stood if I was on the train. I also didn't like taking the train. I always liked to drive into work whenever I could. If I was working in Manhattan, a lot of times I had to drive into Manhattan. So anyway, that's the New York Post story. By the way, this beautiful scene behind me, which let me get out of the way here so you could see it.
Is that your picture?
Yes, that is basically the view of New York that I grew up with. That is 79th Street, Northern Boulevard. At sunset, on a winter evening, and what is missing from this picture, which would be, I think, right about. Oh, you can't see me doing that, but right about here is the World Trade Center.
Yeah.
Which we watched. That's the vantage point that we watched. The World Trade Center go up. From 1968 to 1972 when they were building it. And this right here to the right is, I believe that is just to the left of the Empire State Building. If you look a little bit more that way, this is taken standing on the north side of the street. If you stood in the middle of the street, you could see the Empire State Building.
Well,
And
you say 79th in the Empire State Building's at 34th, right?
well, but this is in Queens.
Right.
So this is Northern Boulevard, which is an east-west street that begins at the Queensboro Bridge and ends up at why can't I remember the name of it? But the northern point of Long Island, northeastern. You know how Long Island becomes like a fork at the end, with a top peninsula and a bottom peninsula, and 25A, which is the designation for this route, goes out to the top peninsula. 25 goes all the way out to Montauk. And that's the continuation of Queens Boulevard, which is south of this. We are looking west, kind of southwest from 79th Street, Northern Boulevard. And yeah, so it's I was rummaging through some pictures and found this one that I took on my return to New York one early winter evening, and I thought that this was our impression of the sunset, where many people in California probably had the beach.
Certainly.
Yeah, this was as kids what we got, and I still think it's one of the more beautiful scenes. As I said, it was more beautiful with the World Trade Center in it. And next time I go back, I'll have to go there. I always seem to wind up on that corner taking pictures of that view. And now, of course, the Freedom Tower would be sticking up there. So I'll have to do that at some point. Take a picture of that. It's weird because it's probably the highest point once you get out of Manhattan, all the way. You know, when you leave Manhattan, you're right at sea level. But as you go out Long Island, you go up a hill. There's a bunch of hills. They're not pronounced huge hills, but this is probably the highest point outside of Manhattan in the borough of Queens. And then it starts to kind of go back down into a valley a little bit as you head out toward Corona and Flushing and Douglaston and that way out Route 25A.
There's still a Queen of Corona out there somewhere?
There's a King of Corona, which is the Lemon Ice King of Corona. I haven't been to Corona in a long time, and I really find that a very interesting neighborhood because it was a neighborhood that introduced that went against the idea that black people were poor and ignorant and stupid. A popular idea, an idea that was popular when we were growing up among many people, many ignorant, poor, and stupid people that happened to be white. Because it was a middle-class neighborhood. The streets looked just like ours. The houses looked just like ours. It just that there was black people living in them houses instead of white people living in those houses. But the neighborhood was always demonized. Don't go there after dark. Don't buy a house there. Don't, but yet every storefront on Northern Boulevard was full. There was no storefronts that weren't open, were boarded up or anything like that. The businesses, the houses were all nicely kept. Most of them, but like in our neighborhood, there was houses that were really nicely kept and a few that weren't. The streets were good. It was, but because of redlining, which was a practice that was popular back then. They didn't get the same services, I don't think, or in the same level that Jackson Heights got, or Astoria got, or once you got past Junction Boulevard, it was a whole different world. The schools weren't as good.
Yeah, that's always a factor.
Yeah, until they started busing people. And then there was a big to do about that. But it was a shame because for me, it it just went against everything that many people tried to tell you is that, the black neighborhood was bad. Nobody was getting mugged or shot all the time in that neighborhood. Every once in a while, there'd be a shooting in a bar or something like that, but there'd be a shooting in a bar in our neighborhood as well.
What about the idea that the National Guard can be called in to calm the streets of Corona?
You
Is
didn't
that
need
ever
them.
considered?
Well, they had it in '65. They had riots, and in '68 they had riots, but they didn't have riots in Corona. They had riots in Harlem. They had riots in the South Bronx, but Corona, you didn't need they had extra cops on, but that was about it. But you didn't have that. You didn't have that because people owned their house. It was a middle class neighborhood. You didn't have. Generally, I don't know if it's the same in L.A., but you find that they put things like the National Guard in those days near where the projects were. But they didn't even do that where there were projects in Queens. I don't think we had the National Guard in Queens out at all. I think that was all Manhattan and the Bronx and Newark and those places. But
Well, Queens has inherited the position of nation's most varied melting pot
oh yeah,
for food, for culture, for society, for immigrants, for the whole thing. Every other house is a family from somewhere more exotic.
Queens
It
is
would
the
be
place
it
to
would it would
prove.
be difficult to find Donald Trump pleased with the racial profile in Queens.
Yeah, no, no, no. He
Not happy.
no, he wouldn't be happy with it at all. Um, because he lived in a restricted neighborhood. He grew up in a neighborhood. By the way, the house he grew up is for sale. I believe it's for $2 million or something like that, which I think is above market value. But I would love to buy it and
Tear it
I don't know,
down.
put the Barack Obama Cultural Center in there or something that would just piss him off to no end. Something that he couldn't that it would keep him up at night. Um, but that neighborhood where he grew up, places like Hollis and Springfield Gardens, stuff like that, they had large black populations, but there were certain pockets, certain areas where the real estate agents wouldn't sell a house to a black person. The banks wouldn't lend a black person the money to buy a house in those neighborhoods. You could be, a black businessman. You could be making millions, but you you weren't going to get a house if you were a black man, black woman, black family. You weren't going to get a house in that neighborhood. Just wasn't going to have. Louis Armstrong couldn't get a house in that neighborhood. Louis Armstrong had to live in Corona, or I guess he could have lived in Manhattan, because I don't think there was, but I'm sure that even in Manhattan there were places that somebody couldn't couldn't move into if you were African American.
And the fine buildings wouldn't allow it.
Yeah. Listen. I remember when there were buildings that you couldn't live in if you were Jewish.
Mhm.
Some of the
Still that
co-ops.
way, probably.
Nah, no, I think it's gone now. I don't think it's. I mean, I hope not. I mean, yeah, I hope it's not that's gone now. Um, but you never know. New York is a place that hides its dirty laundry real well. It knows how to hide its dirty laundry. You can come up with all the laws in the world that you want to come up with, but there's certain people that just aren't gonna just get past them. And obviously we have one as president. By the way, folks, and I know you know this, Michael, but today is World AIDS Day. The president of the United States has done everything he can to hide it, to make sure that people in government don't talk about it, don't mention it, don't acknowledge it, don't participate in celebrations of the advances that have been made in the treatment of a disease that 25 years ago was a death sentence.
Simple enough. To catch it, you're gone.
Yeah. I mean, I think we all know people. If you and listen, you and I grew up in an area that well, I didn't grow up there, but we lived in an area that was the epicenter of AIDS in the 80s.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we all know people and have memories of people that we watched die from a disease that the government didn't even want to admit existed. That it was a queer's disease. And it always, it's a small thing to have this day, I think, for in relation to what should be going on. But it was a way for people to stop down once a year and think about the people that were lost to this disease. And our president has decided that it's I don't know, it's
The burden.
it shouldn't be recognized that the people that died from this because of the government's failure, absolute failure and mistreatment of these people, that they shouldn't be acknowledged by the government, by the same entity that mistreated them. I'm sure people with early COVID and long-term COVID have some feeling of what that is, because how long did it take for the government to recognize that they had a problem?
They still have a problem because of what the government is printing now. COVID shots killed 10 children.
If you take it off the website, then it doesn't exist, right?
That's all you got to do. Follow me, boys.
That's all you got to do these days. Just take it off the website. If the king says it didn't happen, it didn't happen. And if you don't agree with that, we'll get rid of you too.
You won't be happening either.
Very Putin-esque. The only thing that's missing is a plane crash or getting pushed out a window.
and the not plutonium.
Oh, the poison that they use, yeah. that they mix in the drink for you. You go get you a cup of coffee with some.
Or dip the umbrella in the.
Yeah. Don't drink coffee if the bottom of the cup is gone.
Right.
Is some good advice when you travel to Russia. If the bottom of the cup has been eaten away,
That's a bad sign.
you don't want to put your lips on that cup. No matter how much you may need a cup of coffee.
Well, Vinnie, why don't we meet Wednesday and see if the world is any calmer by then? See if Lane Kiffkin's got a job. See if the people in Mississippi have the ability to recover from this, and we might even see a couple of pitchers having found a home with the new team in Major League Baseball.
Yes. Why don't we do that? Get back together on Wednesday morning.
God knows what Donald Trump's going to do to distract us from the Epstein files this week.
Yeah, he's running out of stuff.
Put more people in Venezuela.
He's blowing up cigarette boats as fast as he can.
Yeah, he's running out of stuff.
He's accusing the medical establishment of killing children with COVID shots.
His minions are just following him along. Follow the leader, even though the leader may be watching you straight into hell. Follow the leader. All right, Mikey.
Okay, Vinny.
We'll see you on Wednesday if the Lord's willing. The creek don't rise. Go
No
get
doubt
a Cyber Monday deal.
I don't know what I'm going to do about that, but I'll take a look.
I'm looking at Bazooka Gum. I'm saying to myself that there's got to be a Cyber Monday deal on Bazooka Gum.
How much cheaper can they make it?
Well, it's 10 cents for one of those. What used to be a penny is now 10 cents.
Yeah.
So if they knock it down to 5, it's a deal, right? Still more than we would like to pay for it.
Right now, I would like some bubble gum. Now, by discussing it, I want some.
Yeah, it's one of those items that you that the mere mention of it waters your mouth for it, because everything that goes along with it goes along with a better time in life.
And it's not going to get better. The first choose the best.
Yeah, when you get the powder on your hands and on your tongue.
And on the card.
Yeah. Well, we just used to get the little bazooka. I never liked the card gum because it was always thick not thick, but hard as a brick.
Yeah.
It was almost like a cross between gum and Bonomo Turkish taffy.
Thin and hard.
Yeah. Like my head sometimes.
And mine.
Mikey, peace, love, Manischewitz, baby.
It's quite a wine. I recommend it.
Thanks for listening, everybody. We'll see you on Wednesday. Bye.